it was really useful for me to sort of almost give myself permission to do very little apart from look after the newborn.
Welcome to this episode of the Bump in the Road podcast. Bump in the Road is brought to you by the Derbyshire Family Health Service, part of Derbyshire Community Services NHS Foundation Trust. Today, Kelly talks about her experience of having her second baby 7 years after having her first child. Please be warned that the podcast may cover sensitive topics. If you feel like you need support, our contact details are listed at the end.
Being pregnant was at times tricky. Yeah, I experienced my pregnancies differently. So I had a 7-year gap in between my two pregnancies. So physically, my body, I sort of noticed changes in my body, or my body responding differently from the first and the second. Second pregnancy was harder. So I've had two babies, and every time I've been pregnant, I've absolutely loved the feeling of being pregnant and feeling my babies grow, and being on that journey with them. It's felt really, really special. And that feeling of anticipation of getting to knowing that you're going to meet the babies and wondering who they are, and getting to meet them. And I guess then both times I've obviously also experienced some symptoms, which some of them have been unexpected or surprising, and then some of them fairly typical. So obviously feeling a bit tireder, feeling sick at times, physically feeling more limited in what I could do or not do. But yeah, in the main, just having to be much more mindful of energy levels and not pushing myself too hard, and being sort of honouring the fact that being pregnant takes lots of energy and resource. So yeah, just taking it slower. And then, I guess emotionally, I certainly noticed in both pregnancies that I was much more emotional. I found it, I found things much more upsetting than I might have found normally. That's how I found being pregnant. So lots of things helped my well-being during pregnancy. So I really valued the input from professionals. So my midwife, and as the pregnancy progressed, the staff at the hospital, if we went for additional scans, and so on. So I really appreciated the input of, those services that I was linked into. I also really valued my friends around me, and specifically those who had already either had babies or who were pregnant. And I also felt drawn to sort of just checking out and seeking advice from, grandparents and parents, so those who had sort of gone through it before. I did a pregnancy yoga class. At times, I wasn't up for it. I was too tired, or, just didn't feel it. And those times that I made it, I found it really relaxing and really great to also meet other people. And then also just continuing to do those things that I did pre-pregnancy to look after myself. So getting out in the outdoors, having walks, and so on. Oh, so many emotions. One of the main ones was complete relief. So for my second, especially, I was really anxious about the pregnancy. We'd had complications sort of prior, and I was quite anxious the whole way that something was sort of going to go wrong. And so when he finally arrived, the sense of relief was really overwhelming. And so I was just so pleased he was here. I almost couldn't believe that he was there. I couldn't get my head round it for a while. It almost didn't feel real. But yeah, I felt relieved he was there, and also relieved not to be pregnant anymore, actually, because towards the end of the second pregnancy, it had got quite hard physically, and I was certainly ready to give birth. But I'm smiling because with my first more so, but definitely with the second as well, having a newborn was probably one of the hardest sort of few weeks of my life. and the most sort of filled with joy. It was wonderful. But getting the hang of breastfeeding and sleepless nights, and then just feeling an immense responsibility for this tiny life. Yeah, it was really, really overwhelming. So I was much more prepared the second time round, but that didn't stop it being really, really hard at times. Yeah, so interestingly, I'd done some hypnobirthing sessions prior to giving birth, and I didn't actually use a lot of the hypnobirthing techniques during birth, as I'd sort of aimed to. The birth was quite fast, and there wasn't much sort of time to use those. But some of the conversations we'd had during the hypnobirthing sessions really, really helped. So a book had been recommended to me called Why Postnatal Recovery Matters, which is a really tiny little book, but full of really useful ideas and thoughts. And just the main messages really was that there has to be a moment of pause. There just really has to be a space made for mum to recover, because they've been through a lot physically and emotionally, and they'll continue to do that as they're looking after a newborn. So that has to be accommodated. So it was really useful for me to sort of almost give myself permission to do very little apart from look after the newborn and look after myself. And so I allowed myself to just take those offers of support, whether they were from family or friends. Second time round, we obviously had a 7-year-old as well, so it's like taking the offers of support for her to go off and have some time with her friends or with grandparents, but equally, offers of food or doing some shopping for us. So allowing others to help and acknowledging really that it was a really intense time, and that things would get easier. So it wasn't going to be that hard forever. And again, just seeking out that reassurance and support from my community of friends and others that I knew had newborns, to just check in if there was ever a moment of doubt that it was hard, or were they having similar issues and so on, that I just reach out and have conversations. Yeah, as they come out of the newborn stage, I feel that I grow in confidence because they seem less fragile, and I have recovered as well, so feel more able physically and emotionally to start to explore and get out and about. So yes, certainly from 2 months onwards, I was then doing all those things that I get sort of nourishment from. So going outside, spending time outside, meeting friends, there was a fitness class around where I live called Buggy Fit. And you can sort of imagine, but you take your baby into the park, and then there's some sort of postnatal strength based exercises and a bit of cardio, and that was really, really helpful for me to just start to get back into moving my body and out in the fresh air with the babies. And then that's also fun because you start to get to take them to baby groups and exploring all of understanding what they enjoy and what seeing their personality emerge. So whether that's music groups or going to sensory rooms or just play groups where they can meet others. So that starts to feel like you can be more sociable and reconnect with people. So yeah, I enjoyed that phase. I also had some physio, so that helped with my recovery physically, and I had some Pilates as well towards the sort of end of after about sort of 6 months. I started going to a Pilates class that was just for me, and again allowed me just that hour of time away, and helped me physically with my recovery. Found that really, really useful. But that was a specific sort of postnatal Pilates class, because I certainly felt after pregnancy that I needed assurance that if I was going to a class, they were thinking really carefully about the exercises that they were asking, or I was sort of doing, because I didn't want to sort of do any damage or hinder my recovery in any way. Often it can be quite hard, the amount of advice that you get given. So I guess my advice might be to just listen to yourself and do what's right for you, and sort of understand that everyone's different. So what you need might be different from others, but that it's really necessary to have support around you, whether that's from professionals or friends or family, because it's not easy and you can't do it alone.
If you're struggling with your well-being during pregnancy or with your baby and you feel like you need some support, you can contact Derbyshire Family Health Service on 01246 515100 and make an appointment with a health visitor. You can also text us on 07507 327769. This is a confidential text messaging service for parents-to-be and parents and carers of 0 to 5-year-olds, providing advice and support from one of our healthcare professionals from Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m, excluding bank holidays. You can also visit our website at derbyshirefamilyhealthservice.nhs.uk.